You know that feeling when someone picks a fight with the absolute wrong person? Well, buckle up. Because Karen from my HOA just learned that lesson the hard way when she decided to mess with my wife. A decorated U.S. Navy officer who'd just finished 8 months deployed on the USS Truman. And let me tell you, what happened next was so satisfying. I'm still getting chills thinking about it. So here's how this whole thing started. My wife, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell, had been deployed for what felt like forever. 8 long months on a carrier in the Mediterranean, and I was counting down the days until she came home. When I finally got that call saying she was back stateside, I dropped everything, took the day off work, and drove straight to Norfolk Naval Base to pick her up. Now, if you've never seen someone return from deployment, it's emotional. She walked off that bus in her crisp Navy dress blues, looking every inch the officer she is. Ribbons, badges, the whole 9 yards. We hugged, we laughed, we probably teared up a little, and then we just wanted to get home and be normal. People for a few weeks. The drive back to our neighborhood was perfect. We talked about everything and nothing, just enjoying being together again. Our subdivision is one of those typical suburban places. Neat lawns, matching mailboxes, and, unfortunately, an HOA run by people who have way too much time on their hands. And at the top of that food chain sits Karen Whitmore. Now, Karen is, well, she's exactly what you'd expect. Mid-50s, perfectly styled hair that never moves, and the kind of person who measures your grass with a ruler. She's been the HOA president for 3 years running, mainly because nobody else wants to deal with her drama. She's got opinions about everything. Your Christmas decorations, your fence height, even what color you paint your front door. As we pulled into our driveway, I noticed Karen's curtains twitching. That should have been my first warning sign. Within 30 seconds of us getting out of the car, here comes Karen, power walking across the street like she's on a mission from God. "Excuse me," she called out, that shrill voice cutting through the peaceful afternoon. "Excuse me, you two." My wife looked at me with this expression that said, "Who is this woman?" I just sighed and said, "That's Karen, our friendly neighborhood HOA president." Karen marched right up to us, eyes locked on my wife's uniform like it personally offended her. "I'm sorry, but who are you supposed to be?" she said, not even bothering with pleasantries. My wife, being the professional she is, extended her hand. "I'm Sarah Mitchell. I live here with my husband." But Karen didn't shake her hand. Instead, she crossed her arms and got that look. You know the one. The "I'm about to make this everyone else's problem" look. "I don't think so," Karen said. "I know everyone in this neighborhood and I've never seen you before." "And what's with the costume?" "Costume." She called my wife's Navy dress uniform a costume. I felt my blood pressure spike. But my wife just stayed calm. "Ma'am, I'm active duty Navy. I've been deployed for the past 8 months. Which is why you haven't seen me around." "Deployed?" Karen scoffed. "Look, I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but this is a respectable neighborhood. We don't allow solicitors, and we certainly don't allow people to wander around in military costumes trying to trick people." At this point, I'm seeing red. "Karen, this is my wife. She lives here. She's been living here for 2 years." But Karen wasn't having it. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling through something. "I have the complete HOA resident registry right here, and there's no Sarah Mitchell listed anywhere." "Because she's been deployed," I said, my voice probably louder than it should have been. "She's been on an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean." Karen rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. If she really lived here, she'd be on my list. And if she was really in the military, she'd know better than to wear her uniform in a civilian neighborhood without proper authorization." I looked at my wife, expecting her to lose it. But she just stood there, hands clasped behind her back, watching Karen with this perfectly neutral expression. Later, she told me that's what 8 months of dealing with difficult people on a ship teaches you: patience. "Ma'am," my wife said evenly, "I can show you my military ID if that would help clear this up." "Anyone can fake an ID," Karen snapped. "I'm calling the police. This is suspicious behavior. And I'm not going to let some scammer in a fake uniform compromise the security of our neighborhood." And that's when she did it. Karen actually pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes. Hello, I need police at 247 Maple Ridge Drive immediately." she said, never taking her eyes off my wife. There's a woman here impersonating a military officer and trying to gain unauthorized access to a residence. She's wearing what appears to be a fake Navy uniform and refusing to leave the property. I was stunned. My wife was still calm, but I could see something shift in her posture. She went from relaxed homecoming to officer mode in about 2 seconds. Karen, I said, you're making a huge mistake here. We'll see about that, she replied smugly. The police will sort this out real quick. Within 5 minutes, 2 patrol cars pulled up, lights flashing. Karen practically sprinted over to them like she was greeting liberators. Officers, thank goodness you're here, she gushed. That woman over there is impersonating a Navy officer. I caught her trying to break into that house. She's got a fake uniform and everything. The 2 officers, young guys, probably early 30s, walked over to where we were standing. One of them, Officer Rodriguez, according to his name tag, looked at my wife and said, "Ma'am, we received a report about someone impersonating military personnel. Can you show us some identification?" Without a word, my wife reached into her jacket and pulled out her military ID and orders. Officer Rodriguez took them, looked them over, and then something amazing happened. His whole demeanor changed. He straightened up, looked at the ID again, and then handed it to his partner. "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez said, his voice now completely different. "Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, thank you for your service. When did you return from deployment?" "This morning, officer. I just got back from the USS Truman." The second officer, Johnson, was studying the orders. 8 months deployment, Mediterranean Sea, he read aloud. Then he looked up at my wife with what I can only describe as respect. "My brother served on the Truman. Tough deployment." That's when Karen realized things weren't going the way she planned. "Wait," she interrupted. "You're not arresting her?" "She's obviously a fake. Look at her. She's too young to be whatever rank she's claiming." Officer Rodriguez turned to Karen with this look of barely contained irritation. "Ma'am, not only is Lieutenant Commander Mitchell the real deal, but she outranks both of us. We're both Navy Reserves, and she's our superior officer." Karen's face went through about 5 different emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and then finally, the dawning realization that she had royally screwed up. But my wife wasn't done. She stepped forward, and when she spoke, her voice had that unmistakable tone of command authority. "Officers, I'd like to file a report for filing a false police report and harassment of military personnel. This individual knowingly made false statements to law enforcement with the intent to have me arrested, despite being provided with accurate information about my identity and residence." "Yes, ma'am," Officer Johnson said, pulling out his notepad. "We'll document everything." Karen's mouth fell open. "You can't be serious. I was just trying to protect the neighborhood." "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez said to Karen, his tone now much less friendly, "filing a false police report is a misdemeanor. Harassing military personnel can carry additional penalties. You're going to need to come with us to give a statement." That's when Karen really started to panic. "This is ridiculous. I'm the HOA president. I have authority in this neighborhood." My wife looked at her with the kind of cool, professional stare that probably made sailors on the Truman think twice about screwing up. "Ma'am, your HOA authority doesn't extend to harassing federal personnel or making false reports to law enforcement. Officer Rodriguez, please ensure this incident is properly documented. I'll be submitting a report to my commanding officer as well." "Understood, Lieutenant Commander," Rodriguez replied. "We'll make sure everything is handled appropriately." As they walked Karen toward the patrol car to get her statement, she kept looking back at us like she couldn't believe what was happening. The smugness was completely gone, replaced by this deer-in-headlights expression. After about 30 minutes, the officers came back over to us. "Lieutenant Commander," Officer Johnson said, "we've got everything documented. Ma'am, given your rank and the circumstances, how would you like us to proceed?" My wife thought for a moment. "I think a formal warning will suffice this time. But please make sure it's clear in your report that any future harassment will result in full prosecution." "Yes, ma'am, understood." As the officers drove away, Karen stood in her driveway looking absolutely defeated. She didn't say another word, just turned around and went back into her house. The next morning, I found an envelope in our mailbox. Inside was a formal apology letter from Karen, typed on official HOA letterhead, acknowledging her misunderstanding and promising it wouldn't happen again. She also included a copy of the updated resident registry with my wife's name, properly listed. But here's the best part. Ever since that day, whenever Karen sees my wife outside, whether she's in uniform heading to base or just working in the garden in civilian clothes, Karen suddenly finds urgent business inside her house. Curtains closed, doors shut, like my wife has some kind of Karen-repelling superpower. Last week, my wife was outside washing her car when Karen's friend from down the street came over to chat. I watched from the window as this woman, who I'd never seen before, walked right up to my wife and thanked her for her service. Turns out word had gotten around the neighborhood about what happened, and most people thought Karen had completely overstepped. The woman told my wife, "I heard about what happened with Karen. My dad was Navy, and I just wanted you to know that most of us think." What she did was completely out of line. My wife, being the class act she is, just smiled and said, "I appreciate that. We all make mistakes. I just hope we can all get along going forward." But the real kicker? 2 weeks later, there was an HOA meeting. My wife didn't go, she was back on base, but I did. And when Karen stood up to give her president's report, you could hear a pin drop. Someone from the back of the room asked if the board had any policies about harassment of military families. Karen went bright red and mumbled something about reviewing community standards. At the end of the meeting, 3 different people came up to me to ask about my wife and to thank her for her service. One guy, a Vietnam vet, said he'd like to invite her to speak at the next Veterans Day event. Karen, she wrapped up the meeting early and practically ran out of there. The funniest part is, my wife doesn't even hold grudges. When I told her about the meeting, she just laughed and said, if Karen had just introduced herself and been friendly, we probably could have been good neighbors. That's the thing about real leaders. They don't need to throw their weight around or humiliate people. They handle situations with professionalism and move on. But they also don't let people walk all over them. Now, whenever my wife comes home from base, she makes sure to wave at Karen's house. Not in a sarcastic way, just a friendly neighbor wave. Karen never waves back, but I swear those curtains twitch every single time. So yeah, that's the story of how Karen learned not to mess with the U.S. Navy. Sometimes the universe has a funny way of putting people exactly where they need to be when someone decides to abuse their tiny bit of power. If you enjoyed this story of HOA justice, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more neighborhood drama where the good guys actually win. And if you're in the military or have family who serves, drop a comment below. I love hearing your stories too, trust me. There's nothing quite like watching a bully realize they've picked a fight with someone who's trained to handle actual emergencies, not just imaginary ones in suburban cul-de-sacs.